Let me ask you something that's been bothering me for weeks now. Why is everyone acting like Cody Bellinger is some kind of consolation prize? I'm sitting here watching the Blue Jays tie themselves in knots over Kyle Tucker's $400 million price tag, watching them agonize over letting Bo Bichette walk, and meanwhile Cody Bellinger is sitting right there in free agency, and he might actually be the smarter play than Tucker at literally half the cost. And before you lose your mind and click away, just hear me out, because I think this argument is stronger than people realize. Here's the situation. Kyle Tucker is going to cost $400 million minimum, probably closer to $450 with how bidding wars work. That's an enormous commitment for 10 to 12 years on a player who's great right now, but carries all the risks that every mega contract carries. Meanwhile, Cody Bellinger just opted out of his deal with the Cubs because he wants a longer-term contract, and he's probably going to get something in the neighborhood of $200 to $250 million. So right off the bat, you're talking about saving yourself $150 to $200 million. That's not pocket change. That's an entire all-star player's worth of salary that you could spend on other needs. Now let's talk about what Bellinger actually gives you, because I think people have forgotten how good he is. This is a former MVP. He won it in 2019 with the Dodgers when he hit 47 home runs and was one of the best players in baseball. Yeah, he had some down years after that. Everyone knows about his struggles, but he's completely turned it around. The last 2 years with the Cubs, he's been really good. He hit over 300 last year, hit 26 home runs, drove in 97 runs, and he plays Gold Glove level defense in center field. That's not some washed up veteran having a career year. That's a legitimate star who figured his swing out and is back to being elite. And here's where it gets interesting. Tucker is a right fielder. Bellinger can play center. That matters for the Blue Jays because their outfield defense has been questionable at times, and having an elite center fielder changes everything. Bellinger can cover ground. He makes the hard catches look routine, and he takes pressure off your corner outfielders. Tucker is a good right fielder, don't get me wrong, but he's not giving you that same defensive impact in center. If you're building a complete roster, having that defensive versatility and excellence up the middle is incredibly valuable. But let's get to the real meat of this argument. What can you do with the money you save by choosing Bellinger over Tucker? This is where it gets really compelling. If you sign Bellinger for $220 million instead of Tucker for $400 million, you've got an extra $180 million to work with. What could you do with $180 million? You could sign Pete Fairbanks to close games. You could extend Vladimir Guerrero. You could add another starting pitcher. You could build actual roster depth instead of being top-heavy with one mega contract. That flexibility is worth something, and people aren't factoring it into the equation. Let me give you a specific scenario. Bellinger at $220 million, Pete Fairbanks at $40 million over 3 years, and another quality starter at $60 million. You just spent $320 million and addressed three major needs with proven players. Compare that to spending $400 million on just Tucker and hoping you can patch together the bullpen and rotation with spare parts. Which roster is actually better positioned to win a championship? I'd argue it's the Bellinger scenario, because you have depth, you have versatility, and you're not one injury away from catastrophe. Now, I know what the Tucker supporters are going to say. They're going to say Tucker is younger, he's more proven, he's been more consistent. And yeah, on paper, Tucker is the safer bet right now. He's 27, Bellinger is 29. Tucker's peak might last longer. But we're not talking about a huge age gap here. Bellinger is still in his prime, and the first 5 or 6 years of his deal, he's going to be highly productive. By the time he potentially declines, Tucker would be declining too, because that's what happens to players in their mid-30s. So the age argument isn't as strong as people think. Here's another thing nobody's talking about. Bellinger has won a World Series. He did it with the Dodgers in 2020. He knows what it takes. He's been in the biggest games, hitting the biggest moments, and succeeded. Does Tucker have that experience? No. He's been on great Astros teams, but hasn't gotten over that hump. Now, I'm not saying playoff experience is everything, but when you're trying to win a championship and you're coming off a devastating Game 7 loss, having guys who've been there and done it matters. Bellinger brings that. Let's also talk about the pressure and expectations. If you give Tucker $400 million, he has to be a superstar every single year. if he hits 25 homers instead of 30, if he hits 290 instead of 310, people are going to kill him. That contract comes with enormous pressure, especially in Toronto, where the fan base is hungry for a championship. Bellinger at half the price, the expectations are more reasonable. He can be really good without being the absolute best player in baseball every night, and that's a healthier situation for both the player and the team. Now, here's where my argument might lose some people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I genuinely believe Bellinger's skill set fits what the Blue Jays need better than Tucker's does. Toronto has offense. They can score runs. What they've lacked is elite defense, up the middle and bullpen depth. Bellinger gives you the defense. The money you save can get you the bullpen pieces. Tucker gives you more offense, which is great, but it doesn't actually solve your problems. You're just making your strengths stronger while your weaknesses remain weaknesses. And let's be brutally honest about the risk profile. Every mega contract is a risk, every single one. Tucker could get hurt. He could regress. He could hate playing in Toronto. Any number of things could go wrong, and if they do, you're stuck with that contract for a decade. Bellinger's contract would be shorter and smaller, which means if it doesn't work out, it's not franchise crippling. You can recover from a Bellinger deal that goes bad. You cannot recover from a Tucker deal that goes bad. That risk mitigation is worth considering. Here's another practical consideration. The Blue Jays just lost Game 7. The clubhouse is probably still raw from that. Do you really want to bring in a guy on a $400 million contract who's never been through that disappointment? Or do you want to bring in a World Series champion who can help teach this group how to get over the hump? I think leadership and experience matter more than people give credit for, and Bellinger has both. Let me paint you a picture of what this roster could look like. Bellinger in center, Springer in right when healthy, somebody else in left. That's a really good defensive outfield. Vlad at first, Bichette or whoever at short, a solid infield. And then you've got the money to go sign Pete Fairbanks or Robert Suarez to close games, maybe add another starter, build a bench with actual depth. That's a complete roster. That's a team built to win now and built to sustain success. Compare that to Tucker in right, question marks everywhere else, and crossing your fingers that the bullpen doesn't blow it again. Now, will this happen? Probably not. The Blue Jays seem committed to the Tucker path, and I get why. He's the sexier name, the bigger star, the guy who generates headlines. But sexy doesn't always mean smart. Sometimes the smart play is the boring play. Sometimes you win championships by being strategic with your resources instead of throwing all your money at one player. The Rays have been doing it for years. The Dodgers have done it too, even with their huge payroll. They spread the wealth around instead of going all in on one guy. Here's my final point, and this is what really gets me. If you sign Cody Bellinger and build around him properly, you could actually be better than if you just sign Tucker and hope for the best. Because baseball isn't about having the single best player. It's about having the best roster top to bottom. It's about depth and versatility and not having holes that opponents can exploit. Bellinger plus smart complementary pieces beats Tucker plus bargain bin scraps every single time. But the Blue Jays are so focused on the big name that they can't see the smarter path right in front of them. And when it doesn't work out, when Tucker's contract becomes an albatross, or when the bullpen blows another playoff series, remember that there was another way. Remember that Cody Bellinger was sitting right there at half the price and nobody even seriously considered it.